Hi, my name is Joanna Whitney. I am an intuitive artist, a student of natural law, and an energy practitioner. And we are continuously studying the Kybalion by the three initiates. We're in chapter 13, Gender, page 87. And I'm just going to start reading, and then I'm going to try to talk about gender, what it really is about, not what we're being led to believe that it's about in Crazy Town, in Crazy World, Clown World that we're living in right now. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. The Kybalion. You know, I think I can speak to this right now because we've just been through all of the principles. This is the last one. And basically what we learned was that the all is the first principle. Mentalism, the principle of mentalism, and that brings forward the all. The all is in all, and all is in the all. And that's unity consciousness, singular. And then we have the following 6 principles, which are all dual. Correspondence, as above, so below. Vibration, frequency, which is up and down frequency. Polarity, which is the two poles, one extreme and the other. The principle of rhythm, ebb and flow. The principle of cause and effect. So what basically gender is, it's basically saying that each of those poles has a masculine and feminine. So in other words, as above is masculine and so below is feminine. In the principle of vibration, a high frequency would be male and a low frequency would be female. I believe that that's what that, I mean, I don't think it's negative or positive, although the positive is masculine and the negative is feminine, but the negative is not something to be eradicated. It's a necessary part of the energy, which is here on inherent on Earth. I'll get into that in a second. Rhythm, ebb and flow. So flow would be masculine and ebb would be feminine. Cause and effect. Cause would be masculine and effect would be feminine. And then we come to the principle of gender. That's basically what they are talking about, that here on this plane and the many planes of duality, the two poles are masculine, this is my right hand, and feminine. And also, like when it comes to the toroidal field, this aspect of moving from the root up to the crown is masculine, and then coming down is feminine. And like the yin and the yang, yin is feminine, yang is masculine. But there's a little bit of masculine in the yin, a little bit of yang in the yin, and a little bit of yin in the yang. And that's what you see in nature. Like my talking right now is masculine, and the resting in between words is feminine. I'd say the in-breath is masculine and the out-breath is feminine. Because the in-breath requires effort, whereas the out-breath is just a release of the in-breath. Whereas the masculine requires some aspect of force, and and the feminine is a restful awareness. And both are necessary for the action in duality, as they're going to tell me as I read this. But I just wanted to preface that because of the crazy that's going on in subverted society right now, which is, purposeful. They're trying to create chaos. So, also I will say that evolution is masculine and involution is feminine, which is what we're in right now. We're in involution, a time of involution. So for example, take the infinity symbol. This action would be masculine coming out, and then this involution is feminine. So it is a necessary part of quote unquote evolution. Involution is a necessary part. It's just not pleasant, I guess you'd say, but it's being egged on. It's being exacerbated by the dark occult Luciferians. This is not a natural thing we're going through. Like if you unplug from the internet, then and you go in nature, nature's doing the same as nature always does. Right now it's autumn, which is feminine. I would say feminine. Autumn and winter are probably feminine. You'd think you'd go back and forth. I'd have to think about this, but spring is masculine. Summer is feminine. I don't know. I have to think about it. But anyway, let's get back to this chapter and you'll see if you can figure it out. The great seventh Hermetic principle, the principle of gender, embodies the truth that there is gender manifested in everything, that the masculine and feminine principles are ever present and active in all phases of phenomena, on each and every plane of life. At this point, we think it well to call your attention to the fact that gender in its Hermetic sense and sex in the ordinarily accepted use of the term are not the same. The word gender is derived from the Latin root meaning to beget, to procreate, to generate, to create, to produce. A moment's consideration will show that the word has a much broader and more general meaning than the term sex, the latter referring to the physical distinctions between male and female living things. So nature is creative. Nature is constantly begetting, procreating, generating, producing. That's what it's talking about. Life. And I always think about this experience I had when I went out into my shed one day. I have a shed and it's completely dark in the shed. I went out, I closed up all the holes with silicone and it's completely sealed, I thought. But I was in there and this tiny albino shoot had come up through the floorboards somehow from the earth below, and it was aiming at this tiny pinhole of light in the upper roof of the shed. And that to me is generative. That's the generative principle of gender. And in that, there's a masculine and a feminine. The seed in the earth is feminine. And the force, the life force that drove that little seed to grow in the dark towards a tiny pinhole of light that may have seeped through the floorboards from the tiny pinhole in the corner of the roof between the joists, the perpendicular, boards of the wall and the roof of the shed, this tiny little shoot somehow probably has a wider range of vision than humans, saw that pinhole of light, and it grew up towards the tiny pinhole of light. That's a masculine action that it took. So feminine was the seed deep in the earth, and masculine was that climbing through the darkness towards the light. That's what it's talking about. Because nature continues to create life, even as humanity, or whoever the hell it is right now, the dark Luciferian overlords commanding the order following humans to destroy it, nature continues to generate. That's what it's talking about. Not sex. The obsession of the human race, sex, in whatever form, a tiny bit of pleasure or pain or whatever, the combination. Sex is merely a manifestation of gender on a certain plane of the great physical plane, the plane of organic life. We wish to impress this distinction upon your minds for the reason that certain writers in 1908, like remember, we're in 1908 here writing this book, who have acquired a smattering of the Hermetic philosophy, have sought to identify the seventh Hermetic principle with wild and fanciful and often reprehensible theories and teachings regarding sex. The office of gender is solely that of creating, producing, generating, etc., and its manifestations are visible on every plane of phenomena. It is somewhat difficult to produce proofs of this along scientific lines for the reason that science has not yet recognized this principle as of universal application. You know, as I'm reading this, I just think of humanity as like teenagers. We're like teenagers, really, still to this point. We're just like, you know, just discovered that we have pleasure, we can have pleasure made by certain aspects of our bodies, and we're out there just trying to have more and more pleasure. So everything's about sex to us. And now, you know, it's gone haywire because of this group of crazy lunatic psychopaths who want to take over the earth, you know. And so they're exacerbating these dark fantasies. But I mean, what you don't realize is that they're of a Mithrin cult that is all into cannibalism and blood drinking and adrenochrome drinking, and that's all about death. So it's not part of this. In a certain way, it is a part of this because everything that's here on Earth is part of itself. It's extreme decay, and those that initiated it, I don't believe are really from here at all. They're from some other galaxy. But I'm sure natural law applies everywhere in every galaxy, which they think they can overcome it. They think they can create a place, which is the internet or whatever it is, where they can create their own laws. But unfortunately, they're full of it. There is nothing but natural law. So, you know, that's the subversion of gender. It's like death, decay, carrion, you know, but it's definitely the dark side of the light. So getting back to it here. It is somewhat difficult to produce. Oh, I read that. Okay, sorry about that. But still, some proofs are forthcoming from scientific sources. In the first place, we find a distinct manifestation of the principle of gender among the corpuscles, ions, or electrons, which constitute the basis of matter, as science now knows the latter, and which by forming certain combinations form the atom, which until lately was regarded as final and indivisible. The latest word of science is that the atom is composed of a multitude of corpuscles, electrons, or ions, the various names being applied by different authorities, revolving around each other and vibrating at a high degree in intensity. But the accompanying statement is made that the formation of the atom is really due to the clustering of negative corpuscles around a positive one. So the negative is feminine and the positive is masculine. The positive corpuscles seeming to exert a certain influence upon the negative corpuscles, causing the latter to assume certain combinations and thus create or generate an atom. This is in line with most ancient Hermetic teachings, which have also identified the masculine principle of gender with the positive, and the feminine with the negative poles of electricity, so called. Now, a word to this point regarding this identification. The public mind has formed an entirely erroneous impression regarding the qualities of the so-called negative pole of electrified or magnetized matter. The terms positive and negative are very wrongly applied to this phenomenon by science. The word positive means something real and strong, as compared with the negative, unreality or weakness. Nothing is further from the real facts of electrical phenomenon. The so-called negative pole of the battery is really the pole in and by which the generation or production of new forms and energy is manifested. Energies is manifested. There is nothing negative about it. The best scientific authorities now use the word cathode in place of negative, and the word cathode coming from the Greek root meaning descent, the path of generation, etc. From the cathode pole emerged the swarm of electrons or corpuscles. From the same emerged those wonderful rays which have revolutionized scientific conceptions during the past decade. The cathode pole is the mother of all of the strange phenomena which have rendered useless the old textbooks and which have caused many long accepted theories to be relegated to the scrap pile of scientific speculation. The cathode or negative pole is the mother principle of electrical phenomena and of the finest forms of matter as yet known to science. So you see, we were justified in refusing to use the term negative in our consideration of the subject, and in insisting upon substituting the word feminine for the old term. The facts of the case bear us out in this, without taking the Hermetic teachings into consideration, and so we shall use the word feminine in the place of negative in speaking of that pole of activity. Well, that's very interesting. And it sounds to me like the dark occult had their hand in that. That sounds like a subversion to me that they were up to at that time when they made negative. You know, it's just like how they referred to the Native Americans as Indian. You know, it's a way to degrade that aspect, which is of equal value. And like they said, like when you put a seed in the ground, we don't know what happens. I mean, maybe we do know because we've figured it out or something like that, but it requires that dark, solitary time for its to prepare for generation, just like a butterfly in the cocoon. And the dark occult just want to disrespect that all over the place. Because they want to, you know, they want to use transhumanism so that they can be the creators of life on this earth, or whatever they want to call it. So anyway, I'm going to just leave you with that for now. And we're not done with the chapter. We stopped at the top of page 89, and it's going to take a couple, maybe one more session to go through it, and then we're going to go into the rest of the book, which we're almost done. It's been a very interesting ride so far. So until next time.